Hello, my name is Michael Scott, and this will be my video blog reaction to the materials that we had to view and read for this week's discussion video blog. Now, the first thing we're asked is, are the sessions you watched similar to what you imagined a counseling session to be? Why or why not? For me individually, as a young child, I had some mental health issues and problems and seen several psychologists in the 90s. And when watching these videos, despite reading all of the material that clearly suggested the more empathetic approach of counselors and in the profession and within psychotherapy gradiently changing over time, it still seemed almost jarring and different to me to see how warm and empathetic these counselors were when my experiences in the past were so much more cold and focused on disease. Now, in Chapter 8, we looked at a lot of skills that counselors used and were tasked to see what skills we noticed. And if you pay close enough attention to the videos, all of the major skills that are displayed in the textbook are in full display in these videos as well. Paying attention, they all lean forward, they're very focused, they're using attentive silence, only breaking the silence with very small vowel sounds or words such as oh, okay. Trying to push that conversation forward and pull out from them the information that they're seeking. There is some empathy that you can actually see through the check your understanding skill as these individuals describe what it is that they might have thought in that situation and kind of put that on their head and get the client to think about it from that same perspective. Now, in terms of the differences, one of the things that I noticed that I thought was really interesting, going back to this attentive silence, was it appeared to me, and though it could be anecdotal, it could be just this one session, but it appeared to me that you could kind of see the experience on display from each counselor based upon how they used attentive silence and checking your understanding. The older individuals' silence was much more intentional and seemed much less intentional, because it wasn't forced. And in his check your understanding, now this may have been during, he was not in the assessment stage. He was later on through the therapy, and so they're kind of re-going over and rehashing. But regardless, he's very defined in the way that he recants these things. And then kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, in the homesick video, the young lady that was counseling, she seemed almost jarring, almost Gestaltian in the way that she kind of forced the conversation along. And it was clearly the person's first session. And it almost seemed like I found myself wondering, like, if I was there, would I be off-put by this counselor's kind of pseudo listening skills that appeared to be manufactured. That is, of course, just my interpretation. Clearly, the other individual, the dance individual, was very good at flipping questions on their head and making them see things from a different perspective, so much so that she even commented on it. Lastly, a question to the professor, to the rest of you. What are some tips and tricks during this kind of push-pull scenario that occurs, especially in the assessment portion of counseling, where you kind of want to allow them to trust you and you want them to open up to you, but at the same time you need to prod a little bit in order to kind of burn that dead wood or force the truth to come out. And how do you kind of walk that tightrope that's so subjective and so individual, and at the same time know that you're remaining ethical in your treatments, because you're not just kind of going with the flow and assuming that what you're doing is working, but like have some actual proof positive that what you're doing is succeeding. And how do you see those lines? Thank you so much for your time. Drop a video below.